Poor mum takes her son to eat a burger with little money, but the billionaire's daughter sees everything and touches everyone's hearts. Night fell heavily over Willow Creek. The cold wind cut through the deserted streets, lifting dry leaves that danced in swirls before falling onto the wet asphalt. Streetlights flickered weakly against the dark sky, creating long shadows on the empty sidewalks. Claire pulled her thin coat tight against her body as she walked beside Evan, her 6-year-old son. He held her hand tightly, hopping occasionally to avoid the puddles of cold water forming in the cracks of the ground. "Mommy, are we really going to eat out tonight?" asked Evan, his brown eyes shining with expectation. Claire looked down and met that beaming little face, cheeks red from the cold, a smile too big for his small face. She felt a squeeze in her chest that almost made her stop walking. "Yes, we are, my love." The truth was she was exhausted, completely broken. Another 10-hour shift in the restaurant kitchen, chopping onions until her fingers ached, and her skin was stained with acidic juice, washing endless piles of greasy pans, listening to the boss scream whenever something was late or burned. Her back throbbed as if someone had driven nails into her spine. Her feet felt like 2 blocks of cement. Her hands were rough and cracked from constant contact with hot water and detergent. But when she arrived home that afternoon and saw Evan sitting on the living room floor, drawing alone with pieces of old, broken crayons, something inside her cracked. He was too quiet, too serious. A 6-year-old shouldn't have that tired look. He deserved more than that. He deserved at least one good night, so she took the last crumpled bills she had in her wallet, money that was supposed to pay part of the overdue electricity bill, and decided, one night, one burger, a smile on her son's face, that alone would be worth it. It had to be. They entered Joe's Burger, a simple diner downtown. The smell of hot grease, fried onions, and toasted bread invaded Claire's nostrils as soon as the door opened. The place was almost empty, just a few tables occupied by silent couples and a group of teenagers laughing in the corner. The yellowish light from cheap chandeliers gave the room a tired but cozy tone. Quiet music played on the radio behind the counter. "Sit there, Evan," said Claire, pointing to a table near the window. Evan obeyed quickly, climbing onto the red plastic chair and swinging his little legs that didn't reach the floor. He looked around as if it were the first time he had seen that place, and maybe it was. It had been months since they had eaten out, maybe almost a year. Claire picked up the laminated menu and began calculating mentally. Every number was a stab. A simple burger cost $6, a soda, $2. If she ordered just tap water, she would save those $2. Evan could share the fries with her. She could keep it to $8 max, maybe $9 with the tip. "Mommy, look!" Evan pointed to the illuminated menu behind the counter, eyes wide. "There's a giant meal with bacon, cheese, and onion rings." Claire bit her lip hard. She took a deep breath. "That one is too expensive, son. But it's just for today, right?" Evan tilted his little head to the side, hopeful. "And we almost never come here. Let's see what we can do, okay?" Evan nodded slowly, but Claire saw the light in his eyes dim a little, like a light bulb slowly fading out. She looked away quickly, took a deep breath. She hated this, hated having to say no. Hated not being able to give her son what any child deserved, to choose what to eat without fear, without guilt, without counting coins. The waitress approached, pen in hand and a bored expression. "What can I get you?" "A simple burger and a water, please," said Claire, keeping her voice steady. "And for him." Claire hesitated, swallowed hard. "The same." Evan opened his mouth to speak, but Claire shot him a quick look and he fell silent immediately. The waitress wrote it down without looking up and shuffled away. It was then that Evan pointed discreetly to the table next to them, leaning in close to his mother. "Mommy, look at that meal." Claire turned her head slowly. At the neighboring table, separated only by a narrow aisle, a tall man in a perfectly cut dark suit and upright posture sat next to a blonde girl with light blue eyes. The little girl, who seemed to be Evan's age, was absent-mindedly picking at a huge burger, full of melted cheese dripping down the sides and crispy bacon piled high, golden, crunchy fries on the side, a giant milkshake with whipped cream and a red cherry on top. Evan swallowed hard. His eyes couldn't leave that plate. Can I order that one, Mommy? Claire felt her heart sink like a stone thrown into a deep lake. Everything is expensive, son, she replied softly, looking away toward the window. Evan didn't insist. He never insisted. He just lowered his head and started drawing with his finger on the dirty table, tracing invisible shapes. Claire pretended not to see, pretended it didn't hurt. But it did. It hurt like a slow knife going in, tearing her apart from the inside. On the other side, Sophie, the blonde girl with light eyes, had stopped eating. She watched Evan with curiosity, her head slightly tilted. Then her eyes turned to Claire. She saw the tired woman, the worn-out coat with a poorly stitched tear on the sleeve, the rough, red hands resting on the table. She saw the quiet boy, fidgeting with nothing, trying to pretend he wasn't sad. Sophie tugged gently on her father's sleeve. "Daddy." Harrison Sterling put down his phone and looked at his daughter with full attention. When Sophie spoke, he always stopped everything. "What is it, sweetheart?" Sophie pointed discreetly at Evan, her voice small and serious. "That boy. He wanted a big meal, but his mom said it's too expensive." Harrison frowned and looked at the table next to them. He saw Claire, saw Evan, saw her thin coat, saw her tired hands, saw the boy drawing on the dirty table, and he understood everything in a second. "Daddy," Sophie continued, her voice even lower, "can I give him my meal?" Harrison blinked, surprised, completely caught off guard. Sophie rarely spoke to other children. Since Eleanor, her mother, died 2 years ago, the girl had closed herself off in a quiet, private world. She didn't play, she didn't laugh, she didn't ask for anything. She just existed, quiet and distant, like a ghost of herself. But now she was asking to give food to a stranger. Harrison felt something move inside his chest, something he hadn't felt in a long time. "Are you sure, Sophie?" Sophie nodded firmly, her light blue eyes fixed on her father. "He looks sad. And I'm not that hungry anyway." Harrison took a deep breath, felt a lump in his throat. Then he nodded slowly. "All right. You can give it to him." Sophie picked up the plate carefully, using both small hands, and stood up from the chair. She walked over to Evan's table with slow, almost shy steps. She stopped in front of him, holding the big burger carefully so as not to drop it. "Hi," she said, her voice soft. Evan looked up, surprised and confused. "Hi, I'm not very hungry." Sophie extended the plate toward him. "Do you want it?" Evan's eyes widened as if he had seen a miracle. He looked at the burger, then at the blonde girl, then at his mother. Claire was completely paralyzed. She didn't know what to do, refuse, accept. Her pride screamed one thing, her heart another. And there was Evan, looking at her with hope in his eyes. No need," Claire began, her voice shaky and choked. "We already ordered." "Thank you, but really, no need." "Please," Sophie insisted, looking straight into Claire's eyes. "I want him to eat it, really." There was something in that look, something pure and honest, something that didn't judge, didn't pity, just offered with an open heart. Claire felt her eyes sting. A stubborn tear began to form in the corner of her left eye. She nodded slowly, unable to speak. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Sophie placed the plate in front of Evan carefully and smiled for the first time. A small, shy but true smile, a smile that lit up her entire face. Evan looked at the burger as if it were a lost treasure. "Thank you," he said, his voice quiet and emotional. Sophie went back to her father's table. Harrison watched everything with absolute attention, every detail etched in his memory. When his daughter sat down, he placed his large hand over her small one. "You did a beautiful thing, Sophie," she shrugged, but there was a different sparkle in her eyes, something he hadn't seen in 2 years. Harrison stood up from his chair and went to the counter. He called the waitress discreetly and pointed to Claire and Evan. "That table there, put their bill on mine, and bring a soda for the boy too." The waitress nodded with a smirk. Harrison went back to his seat, but he couldn't stop looking. He saw Evan bite into the burger with his eyes closed, savoring every piece as if it were the last meal of his life. He saw Claire wipe a hidden tear with the back of her hand, turning her face to the window. When Claire and Evan finished eating, the waitress brought the check. Claire opened her wallet with trembling fingers. "It's already been paid," said the waitress, smiling. Claire frowned, confused. What do you mean? The waitress pointed to Harrison with a discreet nod. Claire looked at him. Harrison just nodded slightly, without fanfare, without expecting recognition. She stood up, holding Evan's hand tightly, and walked over to his table. Her heart beat fast in her chest. I don't know what to say, Claire began, her voice faltering in the middle. Thank you. Thank you so much. Harrison stood up, polite and respectful. No need to thank me. Sophie wanted to help. Claire looked at the blonde girl with light eyes, who was now watching Evan with renewed curiosity. She is very special, said Claire, sincere. She's shy, Harrison corrected, with a sad half-smile. Sophie doesn't usually make friends, but I think she liked your son. Evan took a step forward and waved at Sophie. Want to talk? Sophie looked at her father, asking for silent permission. Harrison nodded tenderly. The two children sat on the floor near the window and started talking. First, just loose words and short sentences. Then, quiet laughs that gradually grew louder. Do you like to draw? Asked Sophie. I do. I draw dinosaurs. Dinosaurs are cool. I like princesses. My mum says princesses are brave. My dad says that too. Claire and Harrison stood there, watching. Neither of them knew exactly what to say. What is his name? Asked Harrison. Evan. And yours? Sophie. Silence. A strange silence, but not uncomfortable. Just two adults watching two small worlds meet. She really doesn't usually do this, Harrison repeated, more to himself than to Claire. For 2 years she has barely spoken to other children. She closed herself off after, "We lost someone." Claire looked at him with deep understanding. "I'm sorry." "And you?" Harrison asked carefully. "Evan has been through tough things too," she said softly. Sad, but he still smiles. I don't know how he does it. Harrison looked at her intently. He saw the tiredness in her eyes, the daily struggle, the strength disguised as fragility. "You are a good mother," he said, sincere. Claire looked away, embarrassed. "I just do what I can. It's not always enough." "It's more than enough. Anyone can see that." The children came running back, interrupting the moment. Sophie pulled Harrison's sleeve with excitement. "Daddy, Evan draws amazing dinosaurs." Harrison smiled for real for the first time that night. "Really? And Sophie knows the names of all the princesses," Evan completed, excited. "Even the ones I never heard of?" The two children laughed together, and for the first time in a long time, Sophie seemed alive. Claire felt something warm up inside her chest. It wasn't just gratitude. It was something bigger, something she didn't know how to name yet. Harrison looked at her again. "Do you live nearby?" "Yes." "In the neighborhood next door?" "We do too." Harrison hesitated for a second. "Maybe we'll see each other again." Claire nodded, not knowing exactly what to say. When they left the diner, Evan held her hand tightly. "Mommy, Sophie is really nice." "Yes, she is, my love. And her dad too, he is nice too." Claire smiled but didn't answer. As they walked back home under the dark sky of Willow Creek, she looked back one last time. Harrison and Sophie were still at the diner door, illuminated by the yellow light of the place. Sophie waved her little hand. Evan waved back enthusiastically. And there, on that cold November night in Willow Creek, two families who didn't know each other began to cross paths, without knowing that this small gesture would change everything. Forever. Claire pushed the apartment door open with her shoulder, balancing her old purse and shopping bags from the cheapest market in town. Evan ran in behind her, throwing his backpack onto the worn-out sofa. "Go take a shower, Evan." "It's late." "Okay, Mommy." She heard the bathroom door close and finally allowed her shoulders to drop. She set the bags on the small kitchen counter and went to the round, stained wooden table. She opened the side drawer and took out the envelope where she kept the bills. One by one, she spread them out on the table. Electricity bill, overdue for 15 days. Red notice stamped in the top corner. Water bill, due in 3 days. Cooking gas, the tank felt too light. 1 more week at most. Rent, 12 days late. The landlord had already sent messages twice. Claire sat in the chair and ran her hands over her face. She did the math mentally for the third time that week, as if the numbers would magically change. Her kitchen helper salary barely covered the rent. What was left went to food, transport, medicine when Evan got sick. There was no room for luxuries, no room for mistakes. She grabbed the old calculator and started adding up. Electricity plus water was $83. Rent was $520. Gas, $25. Total, $628. She had $240 saved. She was almost $400 short. Claire closed her eyes tight, took a deep breath. She couldn't cry now. Evan was in the bathroom. If he saw, he would be worried, and a child shouldn't worry about bills. She put the papers back in the envelope and pushed it to the corner of the table. Tomorrow she would think of something. She always did. The next day, Claire arrived at the restaurant at 6 in the morning. The kitchen was already hot and noisy, pans banging, knives chopping, orders being shouted from one side to the other. She put on her stained apron, tied back her hair, and went straight to the vegetable sink. Carrots, onions, potatoes, zucchini. Everything needed to be peeled, washed and cut before 10. Her hands ached before she even started. The skin was cracked and red. Every movement of the knife was a small effort of concentration. She couldn't make mistakes, couldn't cut herself, couldn't lose time. "Claire, faster with those potatoes," shouted the boss, rushing past with a steaming tray. "Yes, sir." She sped up, ignored the pain in her fingers, ignored the weight in her back, continued cutting. Mid-morning, the restaurant owner appeared in the kitchen, a chubby man with a grey moustache and an always grumpy expression. Claire felt her stomach tighten when he approached her. "Claire, I need to talk to you." She put down the knife and wiped her hands on her apron. "Yes, sir. Business is slow, very slow. I'm going to need to cut some shifts." Claire felt the floor disappear beneath her feet. "Cut?" "Yeah. Starting next week, you'll work 4 days instead of 6, maybe 3, depending on business. But I need the 6 days, sir. I have bills." "Everyone has bills, Claire. It's not just you, it's this or I start firing people. You choose." He turned his back and left before she could answer. Claire stood there, holding the knife as if it were the only solid thing in the world. Cutting shifts meant cutting salary, less money, more overdue bills, more despair. She went back to the vegetables and continued cutting, because that was what she knew how to do. Keep going. The shift ended at 4 in the afternoon. Claire washed the last pans, hung her wet apron on the hook, and left through the back door. The alley behind the restaurant smelled of garbage and old grease. She walked slowly, dragging her feet, shoulders slumped forward. She was exhausted, not just in body, in soul too. She stopped for a moment, leaned against the cold brick wall, and closed her eyes, just breathed, tried to push away thoughts about bills, reduced shifts, Evan asking for things she couldn't give. Across the street, Harrison Sterling was leaving a meeting in an office building. He was putting papers in his briefcase when he saw a familiar figure in the alley next to the restaurant. Claire. She was standing there, leaning against the wall, head down. She looked so small, so tired, so defeated. Harrison stopped in the middle of the sidewalk. He didn't know if he should approach, didn't want to intrude. But something inside him stopped him from just walking on and forgetting. He stored that image. The woman with the slumped back, the red hands, the worn coat. Stored it like someone saving something important for later. Then he went on his way, but couldn't get Claire out of his head for the rest of the day. That night, Claire arrived home later than usual. Evan was at the neighbor's downstairs, Mrs. Rosa, an elderly lady who sometimes helped by watching him for a few hours. "Mommy," Evan ran to hug her as soon as she knocked on the door. "Hi, my love. Were you good?" "Yes, I was. Mrs. Rosa gave me cookies." "That's good. Now let's go home." They climbed the stairs slowly. Evan held her hand and chatted about his day at school, about the drawing he made, about the new friend who sat next to him. Claire listened, but her mind was far away, stuck on the bills on the table, on the reduced shifts, on the nearly empty gas tank. When they entered the apartment, Evan stopped talking. He looked at his mother attentively. That looked too serious for a 6-year-old child. "Mommy, are you sad?" Claire forced a smile. "No, son, just tired." "Are you sure?" "I am. Come on, let's make dinner." But Evan kept looking. He knew. Children always know. Claire opened the nearly empty fridge. There was yesterday's rice, 2 eggs, and a half-wilted tomato. She could make something. She always could. While she cooked, Evan sat on the living room floor and started drawing in silence. But every now and then, he looked at his mother, watched, tried to understand what was wrong. Claire served the simple dinner. They ate without speaking much. Afterward, she gave Evan a bath, put his old pajamas on him, and tucked him into bed. "Mommy is going to be okay, all right?" she said, kissing his forehead. "I know," Evan replied, but his voice didn't sound convinced. Claire turned off the bedroom light and went back to the kitchen, sat in the same chair as before, looked at the envelope of bills in the corner of the table. Then, for the first time in a long time, she allowed the tears to fall, silent, heavy, inevitable. Because sometimes, no matter how hard you fight, the world remains too heavy, and that night, Claire didn't have the strength to pretend everything was fine. Saturday dawned with a gray sky over Willow Creek. Claire woke up early, made weak coffee, and separated the bills she needed to pay in person. Some things couldn't be put off anymore. "Evan, get dressed. We need to go downtown." "Can I take my toy car, Mummy?" "You can, but take care not to lose it." They took the crowded bus and got off at the central square. Claire held tight to Evan's hand as they crossed the busy street. There were 3 places to go: the payment center to pay the water bill, the cheap market on the back street, and maybe try to negotiate a few more days for the rent. The cold wind hit her face. Evan pulled his thin coat tight, trying to protect himself. "Mommy, will it take long?" "No, son, real quick." They stopped first at the payment center. Claire paid the water bill and kept the receipt carefully in her pocket. Electricity and rent were still missing, but at least the water was guaranteed for another month. "Now we're going to buy vegetables, okay?" "Okay." But halfway there, Evan stopped suddenly. His eyes widened and he pointed to the square. "Mommy, it's Sophie." Claire followed his gaze. On the other side of the square, near the central fountain, a blonde girl with light eyes was playing alone with a small bucket and a plastic shovel. "Evan, wait!" But it was too late. Evan took off running, crossing the square with his short legs. Claire ran after him, heart racing. "Sophie!" shouted Evan. The girl lifted her head. For a second, she looked confused. Then her entire face lit up. "Evan!" The 2 children hugged with pure and sincere joy, as if they had been friends for years, as if that chance meeting were the best thing in the world. Claire arrived panting, holding her chest. "Evan, you can't run off like that." "Sorry, Mommy, but I saw Sophie." Sophie smiled at Claire, shy but happy. "Hi." "Hi, Sophie," Claire replied, trying to catch her breath. "Is she alone?" asked Evan, looking around. "My dad went to buy water." Sophie pointed to a store on the corner. "He'll be right back." And as if he had heard, Harrison Sterling appeared a few minutes later, carrying shopping bags. He wore a dark sweater and jeans, much more casual than the day at the diner. When he saw Claire and Evan, he stopped for an instant, surprised. "Claire." "Harrison." He walked over to them, still processing the coincidence. "What a surprise. Yeah, we came to pay some bills and I saw Sophie," Evan interrupted, excited. "She was playing there." Harrison looked at his daughter, who was smiling for real, a smile he rarely saw at home. "Daddy, can I play with Evan?" asked Sophie. "And can I, Mommy?" Evan pulled on Claire's sleeve. Claire and Harrison exchanged a quick glance. "Fine by me," said Harrison. "Okay, but stay close by," Claire warned. The 2 children ran back to near the fountain, laughing and talking non-stop. Claire and Harrison stood there, not knowing exactly what to do. "Want to sit?" Harrison pointed to a wooden bench near a tree. "Sure." They walked to the bench and sat side by side. Harrison put the bags on the ground. Claire crossed her hands in her lap, nervous. She didn't know why she was nervous. For a few seconds, neither spoke, just watched the children playing. Sophie was building imaginary sandcastles. Evan was doing funny voices for invisible characters. "She's different," Harrison said suddenly, voice low. "Sophie." "Yeah. Since we lost her mum, she almost never laughs like that. Almost never plays. She's always quiet in her room, drawing alone. Claire turned her head to look at him. There was pain in that face, an old pain, but still alive. I'm sorry. It was 2 years ago, cancer, too fast for us to prepare. It must have been very hard. It was for me and for Sophie, but for her I think it was worse. She was only 4. Didn't understand, right? Just knew her mum wasn't coming back. Silence, a heavy silence, full of unspoken things. "And you?" Harrison asked, looking at Claire. "What is it like, raising Evan alone?" Claire took a deep breath. "It's hard. I work as a kitchen helper in a restaurant near here. The pay barely covers the basics. And now the owner said he's going to cut my shifts." "Cut? Yeah, slow business, according to him. I'm going to work fewer days, less money." Harrison frowned, worried. "And Evan's father? Not in our lives. Never has been, actually." "I see." More silence. But this time it was different. It wasn't uncomfortable. It was like both were processing, understanding, recognizing something in the other. "Do you like to cook?" Harrison asked. Claire blinked, surprised by the change of subject. "I do. Always liked it. My grandmother taught me when I was little. She used to say food made with love cures any sadness." She was right. "Yeah, but washing pans in someone else's restaurant isn't exactly cooking, you know. It's just surviving." Harrison nodded slowly. He knew that feeling of doing something just to survive. "I understand more than you imagine." Claire looked at him, curious. "What do you mean?" "I wasn't born with money, Claire. I grew up poor, very poor. My mom worked 3 jobs. I washed dishes, swept floors, did all kinds of hard labor to help at home." Claire widened her eyes. "Hadn't expected that." "Really? Really? It took years for me to get where I am. And even so, even with money now, there are things money doesn't fix." He looked at Sophie, and Claire understood money didn't bring her mother back, didn't cure the loneliness. "That we do what we can, right?" Claire said softly. "Yeah, we do." The children came running back, interrupting the moment. Evan pulled Claire's hand. "Mummy, can I play 5 more minutes?" "Daddy, just a little bit more," Sophie asked, clasping her small hands. Claire and Harrison looked at each other, and for the first time both smiled together. A light, sincere smile that came naturally. "Okay," they said at the same time. The children cheered and ran off again. Claire relaxed on the bench, felt the weight of the world lessen a little. Just a little. Harrison watched her out of the corner of his eye. There was something about that woman, a silent strength, a struggle he recognized, and without either of them fully realizing it, something began to form there. A connection, fragile still, but real. The minutes passed. The children played. And for the first time in a long time, Claire and Harrison weren't alone in the world. Claire and Evan climbed the apartment stairs slowly. The day had been long, but the meeting with Harrison and Sophie in the square had left a good feeling. Evan wouldn't stop talking about his new friend. "Mommy, Sophie said she has a giant princess book." "That's cool, son. And she invited me to see it someday. Can I go?" "We'll see, okay." They arrived at the apartment door. Claire searched for the key at the bottom of her old purse, found it and opened up. Evan ran in ahead, as he always did. "I'm going to wash my hands, Mommy." He ran to the living room switch and pressed it. Nothing happened. Pressed it again. Nothing. "Mommy, the light won't turn on." Claire felt her stomach freeze. She let her purse drop to the floor and walked to the switch. Tried it too, nothing. Went to the kitchen, tried there. Nothing. The bathroom, the bedroom, nothing. The power had been cut. She leaned against the hallway wall and closed her eyes. Took a deep breath, very deep, trying to control the knot tightening in her throat. "Say, Mommy." Evan's voice sounded small and scared. Claire opened her eyes and forced a smile. She couldn't break down now, not in front of him. "It's okay, son. The light just had a little problem, but we'll fix it." "How?" "Leave it to me. Now come on, let's light a candle." She went to the kitchen drawer and searched in the dark. Her hands were shaking. Found a thick old half-melted candle she kept for emergencies. Found a box of matches too. Struck one. The small flame illuminated her face for a second before lighting the candle. The weak, yellowish light cast shadows around the kitchen. Claire put the candle in the center of the table. Evan sat in a chair and stared at the dancing flame. How long are we going to stay like this? I don't know yet, my love, but don't worry, tomorrow I'll solve it. Lie. She didn't know if she could solve it tomorrow, didn't know when she'd be able to scrape together the money to pay, but she couldn't say that. Couldn't put that weight on a 6-year-old boy. Are you hungry? She asked, trying to change the subject. A little bit. Claire opened the fridge. The internal light was out too. She grabbed the leftover bread, a piece of cheese, and 2 slices of ham, assembled 2 simple sandwiches, put them on a plate, and brought them to the table. There, dinner. Evan looked at the sandwich. Didn't complain. Never complained. Thank you, Mommy. They ate in silence, just the sound of the candle crackling between them. The house seemed different in the dark, smaller, sadder. The shadows on the walls seemed larger, like silent ghosts watching. Claire could barely swallow. Every piece of bread seemed to stick in her throat. The shame was a physical weight in her chest. Shame for not being able to pay a basic bill. Shame for seeing her son eating a cold sandwich in the dark. Shame for failing. Because that was what she felt, that she was failing. Mommy. Claire looked up. Yes, son. I'm not scared of the dark, Evan said, voice small but firm. Claire felt something break inside her, a fine crack that kept spreading, until it was impossible to hold back. I know you aren't, my love. We can pretend it's an adventure, like camping. The tears started to rise. Claire blinked fast, trying to hold them in, but couldn't. A tear rolled down her cheek, then another. She wiped it quickly with the back of her hand. Yeah, it can be an adventure. Evan got up from the chair and went to her. His small arms hugged her around the waist. He rested his little head on her chest. I love you, Mommy. And it was there, in that tight hug in the middle of the dark kitchen, with only an old candle lighting it, that Claire finally allowed the tears to really fall. Silent, hot, heavy. She hugged her son tightly, as if he were the only solid thing in a world that was collapsing. I love you too, Evan, more than anything. They stayed like that for a few minutes, Claire crying softly, Evan hugging, not completely understanding, but feeling that his mother needed him. When the tears finally stopped, Claire pulled away and wiped her face. Sorry, son. It's okay, Mommy. Everyone cries sometimes. She smiled, a wet smile, but real. You are very smart. You know that. I know, Evan shrugged, making Claire laugh softly. Well, now you need to sleep. School tomorrow. But there's no light to brush my teeth. We'll take the candle to the bathroom. Come on. Claire took the candle and guided Evan to the bathroom. He brushed his teeth in the gloom, making faces in the dark mirror. Then they went to the bedroom. Claire helped him put on his pajamas. Can I sleep with you tonight? Evan asked. Claire hesitated. Normally she said no, that he needed to sleep in his own bed. But today she didn't have the strength to say no, didn't want to be alone either. You can. They lay down together in the double bed. Claire covered them both with the thin blanket. The candle remained lit on the nightstand, casting shadows on the ceiling. Evan snuggled against her. His breathing grew slower, heavier. In a few minutes, he was asleep. Claire stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to her son's soft breathing, feeling the weight of that day, of that week, of that life. It was one of the hardest moments of her life. Maybe not the worst, but it was among the worst. Because it wasn't just about the cut power. It was about everything that represented. The lack of control, the feeling of fighting, and still not being enough. She turned her head and looked at Evan sleeping, his calm little face, innocent, confident that his mom would solve everything. And Claire made a silent promise in that dark room. She would keep fighting. Didn't matter how much it hurt, didn't matter how many times she fell. She would get up. Always. For him. The candle burned down slowly until it went out on its own, and the apartment plunged into complete darkness. But Claire remained awake, planning, thinking, fighting. Because that's what mothers do. They fight. Always. Sunday morning dawned with a sore body and an exhausted mind for Claire. She had slept poorly. The apartment was freezing without the electric heater, and the total darkness of the previous night weighed on her memory like a persistent ghost. Evan was already awake, sitting on the living room floor, drawing with crayons in the weak light coming through the dusty window. "Good morning, my love." "Good morning, Mommy." "Is the light back?" Claire walked to the switch and tried it. Nothing, just the dry, useless click. "Not yet." Evan went back to drawing without saying anything else. Claire felt her chest tighten. He was accepting everything so naturally, it was heartbreaking. A child shouldn't get used to this. "Evan, grab a coat, we're going out." "Where to?" "To the square." "You need some sun. Play a little." The truth was, Claire couldn't stand staying in that dark, cold apartment anymore. The walls seemed to be closing in on her. She needed to get out, breathe, pretend for a few hours that things weren't falling apart. They took the crowded bus and got off at the central square. The day was bright and sunny, but the wind remained cold, cutting the face. Some families strolled with small children. Street vendors offered hot popcorn, cotton candy, and balloons. Claire dug in her pocket and found some loose coins. Bought a small bag of popcorn. "Here, son, share with me, okay?" Evan took the bag with shining eyes and ran to the rusty swings. Claire sat on a nearby bench, watching. At least there he could be a child, could play, could forget. She closed her eyes for a moment, just breathed, tried to calm the storm inside her. Didn't even notice when Harrison and Sophie appeared. "Evan!" Claire opened her eyes suddenly. Sophie was running toward Evan, blonde hair flying in the wind, light eyes shining with joy. Harrison came right behind, hands in the pockets of a leather jacket. The two children hugged like old friends. "Evan, you came." "Hi, Sophie. Look, my mum bought popcorn. Can I have a little?" "You can. Here." Harrison approached the bench where Claire was. She stood up quickly, fixing her hair haphazardly and trying to smooth her old blouse. "Claire, what a nice coincidence." "Yeah, we needed to get out a bit." "I understand perfectly. Sunday at home can be a bit stifling." They stood there, watching the children share popcorn and run to the slide. There was something comforting in that chance meeting, as if the universe were conspiring for them to cross paths again. "Want to sit?" Harrison pointed to the bench. "Sure." They sat side by side. Claire crossed her arms, trying to protect herself from the cold. Harrison noticed she was shivering and took off his jacket without thinking twice. "Here." "No need. You're shivering. Take it." Claire hesitated, but the cold was too strong. She accepted the jacket and wrapped herself in it. It was warm and smelled good, comforting. "So thank you. You're welcome." The children played happily. Sophie pushed Evan on the swing with all her might. He laughed loudly, shouting, "Higher, Sophie." It was a simple scene, but so beautiful. "They get along very well," Harrison commented. "It's true. Evan won't stop talking about her, said she's the best friend he's ever had." Sophie, too, gasped me about 5 times when she'd see Evan again. Wouldn't stop talking about him. Claire smiled. It was good to know her son had made a real friend. The children got off the swings and came running, panting and red-cheeked. Sophie pulled her father's sleeve. "Daddy, can I show my drawings to Evan at our house?" "Of course you can, sweetheart." "And can I go, Mommy?" Evan asked hopefully. "We'll see later, son." Sophie then turned to Evan with curiosity. "Did you watch that cartoon I talked about yesterday? The one with the space robots?" Evan lowered his eyes, embarrassed. His cheeks turned red. "No." "Why?" "You said you liked it. It's just that my house is dark. They cut the lights." Silence fell heavy like a stone thrown into a still lake. Claire felt her face heat up with shame, deep, burning, unbearable. She wanted to vanish from there, disappear, anything but be there in that moment. Harrison turned his head slowly and looked at her. There was no judgment in his look, just silent understanding and genuine concern. Sophie furrowed her small brow. "But why did they cut it?" "Sophie, sweetie," Harrison began gently, "it's because we didn't have money to pay the bill," Evan replied with the brutal honesty of a child who hasn't yet learned to hide difficult truths. "But Mommy said she'll fix it. She always fixes everything." Claire clenched her fists tight, fingernails dug into palms, wanted to cry, wanted to scream, wanted the earth to open up and swallow her. Harrison crouched down in front of Evan, getting to the boy's eye level. His voice was calm and affectionate. "Evan, these things happen in life, okay? It's nobody's fault. Your mum is very brave." "I know," Evan nodded, proud. "She works a lot, more than everyone." "Exactly. And you're a very smart and strong boy, too, just like her." Evan smiled. Harrison ruffled his hair affectionately, then stood up and looked at the two children with a gentle smile. "Why don't you go play on the slide again? We're leaving soon." "Okay," said both together, running off holding hands. Harrison sat back down next to Claire. She had her head down, eyes fixed on her rough hands. He didn't say anything for several seconds, just stayed there, present, respectful. "Claire, I didn't want you to find out like this," she said, voice trembling. "It's humiliating. It's not—" "Yes, it is. Not being able to pay a basic bill, having my son eat in the dark, sleep in the cold." "That doesn't make you less," Harrison interrupted, firm but gentle. "You're fighting, doing the most you can with what you have. That makes you strong, not weak." Claire shook her head, tears starting to form. "Doesn't feel like it. Feels like I only fail, all the time." Harrison took a deep breath. There was something important he needed to say. "I know exactly what that is, Claire." She looked up, surprised. "What do you mean?" "I told you I grew up poor, but didn't tell you the details. My mom worked her whole life as a cleaner, 3 jobs, sometimes 4 when she could fit them in. And even so, working until she dropped from exhaustion, there were months the lights were cut, that the gas ran out, that we ate plain rice for dinner because there was nothing else, that I went to school in old clothes, small, torn." Claire watched him in silence, processing every word. "I remember seeing my mum crying hidden in the bathroom at night, thinking I didn't hear. Remember her asking the landlord for more time, shame in her voice. Remember waking up at dawn and seeing her doing math on an old sheet of paper, trying to work miracles with numbers that never added up. Harrison, I didn't know. I grew up seeing that every day, and grew up hating that feeling of helplessness, of not being able to do anything, of not being able to help, of seeing someone I loved destroying herself just to keep me alive." He paused, looking straight into her eyes with intensity. "So I know exactly what you're going through now. I know that weight, that shame, that struggle. I know everything." The tears finally rolled down Claire's face. She didn't try to hide them, just let them fall. "It's so hard, so tiring. I know, but you don't need to go through this alone." Claire wiped the tears with the back of her hand. "I have no choice. It's always been like this." "Yes, you do. Let me help you." She shook her head immediately, almost desperate. "No, I can't accept that." "Why?" "Because it's wrong, because I don't want to be a burden, because you barely know me and—" "Claire, stop." Harrison waited until she lifted her damp eyes. "Look at me. It's not charity, it's not pity. It's simply someone who went through exactly this helping someone who is still going through it. It's just that... But I don't know when I'll be able to pay it back. I'm not asking to be paid back. But then that is charity. No, that is humanity. It's empathy. It's doing what should be done when you can." The silence between them was heavy, but not uncomfortable. It was charged with truth, with vulnerability, with something neither could name yet, but both felt pulsating in the air. Claire looked away, at Evan playing happily with Sophie, laughing, running, being a child. She thought about the dark house waiting for them, the cold of the early mornings without a heater, the bills piling up like a mountain, the sleepless nights doing impossible math, the silent despair that accompanied her like a stuck shadow, and then she thought about the possibility of accepting help, of not being alone, of having someone by her side, even if just for a moment. "I'm ashamed," she confessed, voice breaking. "So ashamed." "I know. My mom was too, but shame doesn't change the situation. Pride doesn't pay bills. It's so hard to accept help. Always did everything alone. I know. My mum didn't accept help from anyone either. Refused everything stubbornly. Until one day someone forced her to accept. And you know what happened? She managed to breathe for real. For the first time in years, she managed to simply breathe without feeling like she was drowning. Claire closed her eyes tight, took a deep breath, trying to control the emotions threatening to overflow. Thought of Evan saying in that small voice, "I'm not scared of the dark, Mummy." Thought of all the times she pretended to be fine when she was broken inside. Thought of the nights crying alone in the bathroom so he wouldn't see. Maybe it was time to stop pretending, to accept that she needed help, that she couldn't handle it alone anymore. She opened her eyes slowly and looked directly at Harrison, meeting those eyes watching her with such understanding. "I accept," she said, voice almost a whisper loaded with emotion. Harrison nodded slowly, a small smile on his lips. "Thank you for trusting me. Thank you for seeing, for understanding, for not judging. Always, I promise." They sat there for a few more minutes in comfortable silence, didn't speak much more, didn't need to. Something had changed between them on that bench, something deep and true, a bond that went beyond coincidences. Harrison wasn't just a rich man helping someone poor, he was someone who really understood, who had been there, who knew it firsthand. And Claire wasn't just a desperate woman accepting charity. She was learning that strength doesn't mean doing everything alone until you break, that asking for help isn't weakness, it's courage. The children came running back, sweaty and happy, faces red from playing so much. "Mommy, Sophie wants me to go to her house someday. She has games. And I want to go to Evan's house too. Can we, Daddy?" Sophie completed with enthusiasm. Claire and Harrison exchanged a look loaded with meaning, and for the first time since they met, both smiled for real, a genuine smile that carried hope. "We'll arrange that properly," Harrison said softly. "Yeah, we'll arrange it." And as the children went excitedly back to the playground, Claire felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. True relief. She wasn't alone in this world anymore. And maybe, just maybe, things could get better from here on. The following week started differently. Harrison kept his word. On Monday morning, Claire received a message from him asking if he could stop by her house to help with the bills. She hesitated, but replied yes. When he arrived, he brought Sophie by the hand. The blonde girl ran to hug Evan as soon as the door opened. "Evan! Sophie!" The two children disappeared into the bedroom, leaving the adults alone in the small living room. Harrison looked around without judging, just observed. "Can I see the bills?" Claire grabbed the crumpled envelope and handed it to him. Harrison sat at the table, opened each paper and started taking notes in a notebook he brought. "There's the light back. Last night you paid it, right?" "I did. And the rent too, but now we need to organize the rest so you don't stay in this situation anymore." Claire sat on the other side of the table, watching him work. There was something comforting in the way Harrison picked up each bill, read it carefully, and wrote down numbers. "How much do you spend on groceries a month?" "About $200, sometimes less. There's a market on Oak Street that is much cheaper, products of the same quality, but prices are better. I can take you there tomorrow if you want." "You don't need to do that." "I know, but I want to." Claire looked away, feeling her face heat up. In the following days, Harrison began to appear more frequently, always with delicacy, always respectful, never invasive. On Wednesday, he took Claire to the market on Oak Street. She was impressed with the prices, managed to buy almost double the food with the same money. "How did you know this place?" "My mom shopped here when I was a child." "Still the same owner?" Claire pushed the cart beside him, and for the first time in a long time, didn't feel that crushing weight of having to calculate every penny. On Friday, Claire left work late. It was raining hard and she didn't have an umbrella. Took out her phone to call for a ride, but saw she didn't have enough balance. Then she received a message from Harrison. "I'm near your work. Can I give you a ride?" She hesitated for just a second before replying, "Yes, thank you." Minutes later, a black car stopped in front of the restaurant. Harrison opened the passenger door. "Get in, you're soaking wet." Claire got in, dripping water on the leather seat. He turned on the heater immediately. "I'm sorry to wet your car." "Stop that nonsense. Where do I pick up Evan?" "At the neighbor's house." "But you don't need to." "Claire, I'm already here. Let me take you home." She sighed and gave the address. When they arrived at the neighbor's house, Evan ran out and stopped upon seeing the car. "Hi, Harrison." "Hey there, champ. Get in, we're taking you home." Evan got in excitedly in the back seat. On the way, he chatted non-stop about school, about the drawing he made, about the game at recess. Harrison listened attentively, asking questions and laughing at the funny stories. Claire watched everything in silence. There was something in the way Harrison treated Evan, with genuine affection, with real interest. It wasn't faked. It wasn't obligation. It was real. When they arrived at the apartment, Harrison turned off the car. "Let me go up with you. This rain is too heavy." He grabbed Claire's bag and went up with them. At the apartment door, Evan pulled his sleeve. "Do you want to come in? Mommy makes really good hot chocolate." Harrison looked at Claire, asking for silent permission. "You can come in," she said, opening the door. While Claire made hot chocolate in the kitchen, Harrison stayed in the living room with Evan. The boy showed all his drawings, explaining every detail with excitement. "This one is a giant dinosaur, and this is a robot that flies. It looks amazing. You draw very well." Claire brought 3 mugs of hot chocolate. They sat in the small living room, drinking slowly while the rain beat against the window. "Sophie misses you, Evan," Harrison said. "I miss her too. Can we play again?" "You can. How about Saturday?" Evan's eyes shone. "Really? Really? If your mom lets you." Evan looked at Claire with that pleading look. "Can I, Mommy?" Claire smiled. "You can." On Saturday, Harrison picked up Claire and Evan in the morning, took both to a big park where Sophie was already waiting. The children ran immediately to the toys, shouting and laughing. Claire and Harrison sat on a nearby bench. "They never get tired," Harrison commented, amused. "Infinite energy," Claire agreed. They stayed there, watching, but gradually started to talk about small things at first, the weather, the city, places they liked, then about bigger things, old dreams, regrets, hopes. Claire caught herself laughing for real for the first time in months. Harrison had a way of telling stories that made her forget her problems, at least for a few minutes. "You have a beautiful smile," Harrison said suddenly, then looked away, as if he had spoken by accident. Claire felt her face heat up. "Thank you." Silence. But it wasn't uncomfortable. It was full of something unsaid. The following weeks were like that. Casual meetings that became frequent. Harrison taking Claire to the market, picking her up from work on rainy days, taking Evan to play with Sophie, small gestures that made all the difference. One day, Claire was struggling to carry heavy bags when Harrison appeared out of nowhere. "Let me help." He took the bags as if they weighed nothing. Another day, Claire's blender broke. The next day, Harrison showed up with a new one. "Found it on sale," he said, lying blatantly. Claire didn't believe him, but accepted anyway. The children, meanwhile, had become inseparable. Sophie and Evan played together whenever they could. Drew, invented stories, laughed endlessly. "I've never seen Sophie so happy," Harrison confessed one day. "Since her mom died, she was so quiet, but now she's a child again." "Evan changed too," Claire said softly. "He smiles more, talks more. I think having a friend was good for him, was good for both." They looked at each other, and there, in that moment, something changed again. Something subtle, but undeniable. Claire started to notice small things, the way Harrison smiled when he saw her, how he always asked if she was okay, how he remembered small details she mentioned. Harrison's, in turn, admired everything about her, the silent strength, the way she never gave up, how she loved her son with such intensity, how even when tired always found energy to smile. One day Harrison stopped by to pick Claire up from work. She came out the back door, tired as always, but when she saw his car waiting, her face lit up. He felt his chest tighten seeing that smile, a smile that was just for him. Claire got in the car and sighed. What a day. Rough. Too much. But now it's better. She said it without thinking, then realized what she had said and looked away, embarrassed. Harrison smiled, but said nothing, just drove, feeling something warm up inside him. They were getting closer, slowly, carefully, but it was real. Still no confessions, still no words spoken out loud, but there were looks that lasted a second too long. Smiles that meant more than they seemed, comfortable silences that said everything. Claire started to feel lightness near him, as if the weight of the world lessened when Harrison was around, and Harrison started to realize that this brave, fighting woman full of love had become someone too important in his life. Something was growing between them, something beautiful, natural, inevitable, and even without words, both knew they were falling in love. It was a Sunday afternoon. Claire had the day off and Harrison invited her and Evan for lunch at his house, the first time they would go inside. The house was big, but not flashy, elegant but welcoming. Claire felt a squeeze in her chest, realizing the difference between their worlds. "Time, relax," Harrison said, noticing her tension. "It's just a house." The children ran to Sophie's room, eager to play with her toys. Claire stayed in the living room, looking out the large window that faced a well-kept garden. "Coffee," Harrison offered. "Please." They sat in the spacious kitchen. Harrison made fresh coffee and put some cookies on a plate. Sat in front of her. "Can I ask you something?" Claire said, hesitant. "Of course. How did you get all this? You said you grew up poor, but this isn't small." Harrison took a sip of coffee, as if gathering courage. "It's a long story." "I have time." He took a deep breath. "I grew up in a neighborhood very similar to yours. My mum was a cleaner. My dad abandoned us when I was 5, never came back." Claire listened in silence. "We lived with the minimum. Lights cut, water cut. There are months we ate just rice and beans. My mum worked so much I barely saw her. When I did, she was always exhausted. Like me." "Like you," he confirmed. "When I turned 14, I got my first job. Washing dishes in an Italian restaurant. Worked 6 hours after school. Earned peanuts but helped at home. So young. Had no choice. My mum couldn't manage alone. So I worked. Washed dishes for 2 years. Then became kitchen helper. Then waiter. Did everything." Harrison paused, looking at the coffee. At 18, got a scholarship for business college. Studied by day, worked by night, slept 4 hours a night. Went like that for 4 years. "How did you handle it?" "Because I promised my mum I would get her out of that life, that one day she would rest, that I would give her everything she never had." His voice faltered a little. "And did you manage?" "I did, graduated, got a good job at an investment firm, worked like crazy, moved up, learned fast. 5 years later, opened my own company. It worked really well." "And your mom?" Harrison smiled, but it was a sad smile. "She got to retire, bought her a house, a nice house with a garden, everything she always dreamed of. She lived there for 3 years before dying." "I'm sorry." "Me too. Every day." Silence. Heavy but respectful. "And Sophie?" Claire asked softly. "You said she isn't your biological daughter." Harrison nodded slowly. "She's not. Sophie is Eleanor's daughter, my best friend." "Eleanor?" "We met in college. She was a scholarship student too, was poor too. We understood each other, became best friends. She was like a sister to me." He paused, voice getting quieter. "When I graduated and the company started doing well, I helped her too, paid her tuition, helped her get a job. We always stayed close." "And Sophie's father?" "Never really existed. The guy left Eleanor when he found out she was pregnant, disappeared. Eleanor decided to have Sophie alone. I helped how I could, was always there." Claire saw the pain in his eyes. "Eleanor was strong, brave, like you. She raised Sophie working, studying, doing everything alone, and was happy. Even with little, she was happy." "What happened?" Harrison closed his eyes for a second. "Cancer. Aggressive. Out of nowhere. Eleanor started feeling pain. When they found it, it had already spread. Doctors said she had 6 months. She lived 4. Harrison, before dying, she asked me one thing, made me promise. She said, 'Take care of my Sophie. Love her as if she were yours. And I promised. Cried, but promised. Tears began to roll down Claire's face. She couldn't hold them back. Sophie was 4 when Eleanor died. She didn't understand properly. Just knew Mum wasn't coming back. I adopted her legally, became her father, and since then, it's me and her. You did a beautiful thing. I did what had to be done. Eleanor was my family. Sophie is my daughter now, for real. Claire wiped the tears with the back of her hand. That's why you understand so much. That's why I understand. I'm not imagining your pain, Claire. I lived it. I saw my mom go through it. I went through it. I know exactly what it's like waking up, not knowing if there will be food. What it's like feeling ashamed of being poor. What it's like fighting every day just to survive. He leaned forward, looking straight into her eyes. So when I help you, it's not pity. It's not charity. It's because I know. I really know. Claire felt something break inside her. All the barriers she had built started to fall. Because Harrison wasn't someone from outside looking in. He had been there. He knew. Thank you for telling me this, she said, voice choked. Thank you for listening. They sat there, facing each other, with a connection that now went much deeper. It wasn't just attraction anymore. Wasn't just friendship anymore. It was recognition. It was identification. It was seeing in the other a different version of oneself. Claire looked at Harrison and saw a man who fought, who suffered, who won, but never forgot where he came from. Harrison looked at Claire and saw a woman who was still fighting, who was still suffering, but who didn't give up, never gave up. You are amazing, he said suddenly. Claire blinked, surprised. Me? You. The way you fight for Evan. The way you never give up. Even when everything seems impossible, you continue. That is true strength. I have no choice. Yes, you do. Many people would give up. But you don't. And that makes you amazing. Claire didn't know what to say, just looked at him, feeling something move inside her chest. Something strong, something scary, something inevitable. The connection between them had changed completely in that moment. It was no longer superficial. Now there was deep respect, mutual admiration, true intimacy, and above all, trust. Trust that comes from being truly seen, from being understood, from not needing to explain because the other already knows. The children came running back to the kitchen, laughing and asking for juice. Claire and Harrison pulled apart, but the look they exchanged said everything. Something had changed, and there was no turning back. On Thursday morning, Claire woke up with a decision made. Wanted to thank Harrison for everything he had done. Not with words. Words seemed too small. Wanted to do something special. She grabbed her phone and typed a message. Harrison, do you and Sophie want to have dinner here at my house on Saturday? Wanted to return a little of everything you did for us. The reply came in less than a minute. We would love to. What time? 7 in the evening. Perfect. Can we bring something? No need. Just come. Claire put away the phone with a nervous smile. Now she needed to plan. On Saturday morning, she woke up early. Evan was still sleeping. She went to the kitchen and opened the old notebook where she kept her mother's and grandmother's recipes. Handwritten recipes, with grease stains and notes in the margins. Ran her finger over the yellowed pages. Every recipe brought a memory. The vegetable soup her grandmother made on cold days, the roasted chicken with herbs her mother prepared on Sundays, the creamy mashed potatoes, the apple pie with cinnamon. Decided to make everything. Spent the whole morning at the market choosing ingredients carefully. Spent more than she should have, but didn't care. That night needed to be special. When she got back home, Evan was awake, sitting on the sofa. Mommy, why did you buy so much stuff? We're going to have visitors tonight. Harrison and Sophie are coming for dinner. Evan's eyes shone. Really? Sophie is coming here. She is. So you're going to help me tidy everything up, okay? Okay. Claire spent the entire afternoon in the kitchen. Chopped vegetables with precision, seasoned the chicken with a mix of herbs her mother taught her, prepared the mashed potatoes, adding butter and milk until creamy and smooth. Made a soup starter with a golden and fragrant broth. While she cooked, something inside her woke up. Something that had been dormant for years. The passion for cooking. The pleasure of creating something with her own hands, the satisfaction of transforming simple ingredients into something special. The house began to fill with smells: golden garlic, fresh herbs, roasting chicken, cinnamon and apple. Evan appeared in the kitchen, sniffing the air. "Mommy, it smells so good." "Not done yet. Go tidy the living room for me." "I will." Evan organized the sofa cushions, swept the floor, put the clean cloth on the small table. Claire looked around and felt a squeeze in her chest. The house was simple, small, old, but it was clean, organized, and smelled like home. At 6:30, Claire took a quick shower and put on the best clothes she had. A simple blue blouse and black pants, nothing fancy, but clean and neat. At 7 on the dot, the doorbell rang. Evan ran to open it. Sophie entered jumping, and the two children hugged as they always did. Harrison entered right behind, holding a bottle of wine and a bouquet of simple flowers. "I know you said not to bring anything, but thank you." Claire took the flowers, feeling her face heat up. "They are beautiful." Harrison looked around, stopped, sniffed the air. "Claire, what did you make? It smells amazing in here." "Cooked a few things. Nothing much. Nothing much. This smells like a 5-star restaurant." Claire laughed, nervous. "Exaggerator. Sit down, please. I'm going to serve." The children sat on the sofa, talking excitedly. Harrison sat at the table while Claire brought the plates. First, the soup, a golden broth with perfectly cut pieces of vegetables. Harrison took the spoon, tasted, and closed his eyes. "My God, bad?" Claire asked. "Worried? Bad?" "Claire, this is the best soup I've ever had in my life. Seriously." She smiled, relieved. "It's my grandmother's recipe." "Your grandmother was a genius then." They ate the soup slowly, savoring. The children ate quickly, more interested in playing than food billionaire, but Harrison paid attention to every spoonful. Then Claire brought the main course. Golden roasted chicken with crispy and fragrant skin, creamy mashed potatoes, vegetables sautéed with butter and herbs, fluffy rice. Harrison looked at the plate as if it were a work of art. "Claire, did you make all this?" "I did. It's my mother's recipe." He cut a piece of the chicken, put it in his mouth, chewed slowly, stopped. "Claire," his voice came out low, almost emotional. "This is amazing, like truly amazing." "You're exaggerating." "I'm not. I've eaten in expensive restaurants, award-winning restaurants, and none compares to this here. This is perfect." Claire felt her eyes sting. It had been so long since someone praised her cooking for real. It had been so long since she cooked something beyond the basics to survive. "Thank you," she whispered. They ate in silence for a few minutes, but it was a good silence, comfortable, just the sound of cutlery and the children's laughter in the background. "Did you learn to cook with your mom?" Harrison asked. "With her and my grandmother. They always said food made with love cures any sadness." They were right. Claire looked at him, curious. "Why?" "Because I'm here, eating this food and feeling at home. For real. It's been a long time since I felt that." She looked away, too emotional to answer. "Have you ever thought about cooking professionally?" Harrison asked suddenly. Claire laughed humorlessly. "I thought about it. My whole life, that was my biggest dream when I was young, having my own small restaurant, making real food, food that reminds you of home." "Why didn't you do it?" "Because life happened. Got pregnant. Evan's father disappeared. I needed money fast, so I accepted whatever job appeared. Ended up becoming a kitchen helper. But it's not the same thing. I just wash pans and chop vegetables. I don't really cook." Harrison watched her with total attention. "You have real talent, Claire. This isn't just good food. This is art." "Art doesn't pay bills," she said. But there was sadness in her voice. "It should." They continued eating. Claire brought dessert, apple pie with cinnamon, still warm, with a golden and crispy crust. Harrison tasted it and moaned, "You're kidding. This is better than the main meal. Also, my grandmother's recipe. Your grandmother should open a culinary school." Claire laughed for real this time. A light, loose, genuine laugh. When they finished eating, the children were sleepy. Sophie yawned and leaned on her father's shoulder. "Think it's time to go," Harrison said, but seemed reluctant. "Okay." Claire walked them to the door. Evan was already almost sleeping on the sofa. "Thanks for dinner," Harrison said, looking straight into her eyes. Seriously, it was perfect. "Thank you for everything you did for us." This dinner was little compared to that. It wasn't little, it was special. They stood there at the door for a few seconds longer than normal, just looking at each other. Sophie pulled her father's sleeve. "Daddy, let's go." "Coming, sweetie." Harrison took a step back, but his eyes were still on Claire. "Will we see each other soon?" "Of course." "Good night, Claire." "Good night." She closed the door slowly and leaned against it, taking a deep breath. Her heart beat too fast. Outside, Harrison put Sophie in the car and drove back home, but his head was far away. It was in that small house, at that simple but perfect dinner, with that amazing woman who cooked with her heart. He thought about Claire the whole way, about her shy smile, about the wasted talent, about the way she talked about food with passion in her eyes, and for the first time in years, Harrison felt something he didn't expect to feel again. He was falling in love, for real, completely, and there was no turning back. 2 weeks after the dinner, Harrison called Claire to meet at the square. It was a sunny Saturday. The children ran to the toys as soon as they arrived, and the adults sat on the usual bench. Harrison seemed different, more serious, more focused, as if he had something important stored inside him. "I need to tell you something," he started. Claire felt her heart accelerate. "Is everything okay?" "Yeah, better than okay. I have a proposal." "What kind of proposal?" Harrison turned his body to face her completely. His eyes were fixed on hers. "Claire, since that dinner at your house, I can't stop thinking that food wasn't just good. It was special. It was the kind of food that makes people remember home, family, love. Everything that really matters." "Harrison, let me finish," he asked, holding her hand gently. "You have real talent, a talent that is being wasted washing pans in someone else's restaurant, and I want to change that." Claire frowned, confused. "What do you mean?" Harrison took a deep breath. "I want to invest in you. I want to open a restaurant for you." Silence. Claire blinked once, twice, then laughed nervously, as if it were a joke. "What? A restaurant? Yours, where you cook what you know best, real food, homemade food. Those recipes from your mom and grandma that you told me about. Harrison, are you crazy?" "I'm serious." Claire let go of his hand and got up from the bench, walking in circles, heart beating out of rhythm. Breathing was difficult. "No, no, 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 that's madness. Me? Open a restaurant? Harrison, I can barely pay my bills. I'm a kitchen helper. I know nothing about running a business, about suppliers, about—" "I know," Harrison interrupted, standing up too. "I handle the administrative part. I handle the money, the suppliers, the employees, all that. You just handle the kitchen. You just do what you already do best." "But what if it goes wrong? What if nobody likes my food? What if I lose your money? It won't go wrong." "You don't know that." "I know," he said with absolute firmness, holding both her hands now. "Claire, I've worked with investments for years. I know how to recognize talent when I see it. I know how to recognize potential, and you have both. You have something money doesn't buy. Authenticity." Claire shook her head, tears starting to form. "I'm scared." "I know you are, but even scared, you won't be alone. I'll be with you every step, in every decision, in every challenge. We do this together." "Why are you doing this?" "Doing? Why do you believe in me so much?" Harrison took a step forward, looking straight into her eyes with an intensity that made her hold her breath. "Because I see you. For real. I see the woman you are, the fighter who never gives up, the amazing mother who does the impossible every day, the talented cook who puts love in every plate. And I believe you deserve the chance to show that to the whole world." The tears finally rolled down Claire's face. She covered her face with her hands, trembling. "What if I'm not good enough?" "You are. Trust me, Claire. Just this once. Trust." Claire took several deep breaths, trying to control the emotions threatening to overflow. Looked at the children playing on the slide, laughing without worry. looked at Harrison waiting patiently, without hurry, without judgment, looked at her own rough and injured hands from so much hard work, and then thought of the old dream she kept deep in her heart, of a whole life washing other people's dishes, of Evan growing up seeing his mom fighting but never really achieving anything. Maybe it was time to risk it, to believe, to try. She wiped the tears with the back of her hand and looked at Harrison with determination mixed with fear. "Okay, I accept." Harrison smiled, a huge, genuine smile that lit up his whole face. "Really? Really? I'm terrified, but I accept. Let's do this." He pulled her into a tight hug. Claire allowed herself to stay there for a few seconds, feeling his strength, the security, the support. "We're going to do something amazing," he whispered in her ear. "I promise." The next 3 months were absolute madness. Harrison found a small but charming spot on a busy street downtown. Had a spacious and modern kitchen and a cozy dining room with capacity for 30 people. "It's perfect," Claire said when she saw it for the first time, still empty and smelling of fresh paint. "It'll be even better when you put your mark here." They renovated everything. Harrison handled the administrative details, licenses, contracts, while Claire planned the menu with obsessive care. Mom's recipes, grandma's recipes, simple dishes, but made with refined technique and genuine love. Claire resigned from her old job. The boss grunted something about her making a mistake. But for the first time in years, she walked out the front door of that restaurant with her head held high and a smile on her face. They hired a small team, 2 kitchen helpers and 2 waiters. Claire trained them personally, teaching every recipe, every technique, every detail that made a difference. The name was chosen together on a rainy afternoon, Claire's Kitchen. Simple, direct, honest, true. The opening was set for a Saturday afternoon. Claire was terrified, spent the whole morning in the kitchen, preparing everything with trembling hands and racing heart. "Breathe," Harrison said, placing firm hands on her shoulders. "You were born for this. I know you were born for this. What if no one comes? What if the food isn't good enough? They will come, and it will be amazing. Trust." The doors opened at 6 in the evening. In the first 15 minutes, no one entered. Claire felt panic rising in her throat, suffocating. Then a family entered. Father, mother, and 2 small children. Then an elderly couple holding hands. Then 3 more people. Then more. In an hour, the restaurant was completely packed, with people waiting at the door. People tasted the food and closed their eyes, sighed, smiled. Some even wiped discreet tears, asked for more. "This reminds me of my grandmother's food," a lady said, with watery eyes and choked voice. "She died 20 years ago and I hadn't tasted this flavor. Thank you." "How long since I ate something like this? Something real," a man commented, shaking his head in wonder. Claire heard everything from the kitchen, heart beating so hard it felt like it would explode. It was working, really working. Her dream was becoming reality. In the following weeks, the restaurant became a sensation in the city. People came back, brought friends, brought family, brought co-workers, posted photos on social media, wrote brilliant reviews on specialized sites, the best homemade food in town. You enter as a customer and leave as family. Every dish is a warm hug. Claire cooks with her soul. Claire could barely believe it. Her dream was not only coming true, it was thriving, growing, living. And through everything, Harrison was there, solving bureaucratic problems, negotiating with suppliers, giving emotional support, but mostly just being present. 6 months after opening, everything had changed completely. Claire's life was another, unrecognizable. Evan now studied at a better school, with dedicated teachers and proper structure. Had new clothes that fit right, had toys, had books. But more important than all that, had a happy mom, a mom who came home tired but smiling, a mom who achieved her dream. "Mommy, you are the best cook in the world," Evan said one day, hugging her tight. Claire cried, but this time they were tears of pure joy. Sophie changed drastically too. The shy and closed girl started spending afternoons at the restaurant after school. She sat in a cozy corner, drawing and coloring, while Claire cooked and talked to her, sometimes helped set the tables, sometimes talked to the friendlier customers. "She loves being here," Harrison commented one day, watching his daughter laugh with one of the waitresses. "It's the first place where she feels really safe and happy since Eleanor died." "This place is hers too," Claire said with genuine affection. "Yours too, always will be." The two families had blended so naturally and organically that it was impossible to tell where one ended and the other began. Dinners together almost every night. Weekends together always. Evan and Sophie were practically siblings now. Inseparable. Partners in crime. And Claire and Harrison, they were something neither dared to name out loud yet. But it was real. Deep. Undeniable. Growing every day. It was a Tuesday night, 6 months after opening. The restaurant had closed half an hour ago. The staff had already left, tired but satisfied. Only Claire, Harrison, Evan and Sophie remained in the silent dining room. The children ran through the empty space, laughing and playing tag between the set tables. Evan pretended to be a ferocious dinosaur. Sophie screamed dramatically, running and laughing loud, her blonde hair flying. Claire was behind the counter, cleaning the last things of the day, watching the children with a soft smile on her face. She was tired, but it was a good tired, a tired of someone who worked doing what she truly loves. Harrison approached from behind her silently, wrapped his arms around her waist carefully, and pulled her lightly against his chest. Claire froze for a second, surprised, then relaxed completely, leaning back on him, feeling his warmth against her back. "We created something beautiful, Claire," Harrison said softly, close to her ear. "Together. Something really special." Claire turned her head slightly, looking at him over her shoulder. "We really did. Still can't believe it's real. Are you happy? More than I thought it would ever be possible to be." "Me too." They stayed like that for a few seconds, just watching the children. Evan picked Sophie up, or tried to, because she was almost the same size, and they both fell on the floor in a heap of laughter. "Farsis, they look like real siblings," Claire commented, voice full of tenderness. "Because they are. In the way that really matters." Claire turned completely inside his embrace, still wrapped in Harrison's arms, and looked straight into his eyes. "Thank you for everything. For believing in me when I didn't believe. For giving me the chance I never had. For being by my side in every hard moment." "You changed my life too," Harrison said, voice low and sincere. "You and Evan reminded me what it is to have a real family, reminded me that life can be good again, that it's worth opening your heart." The children stopped running and approached, panting and happy. Evan pulled the hem of Claire's blouse. "Mommy, can we sleep at Harrison's house tonight? Sophie said there's a really cool new movie." Claire and Harrison exchanged a look loaded with meaning, smiled at the same time. "You can," Claire said. "Yay!" the children shouted together, jumping for joy. They locked the restaurant carefully and went to the car. The children sat in the back seat, chattering non-stop about the movie, about school, about cartoons. Claire and Harrison in the front, holding hands over the gear shift, in comfortable silence. When they arrived at the house, the children ran inside. Claire and Harrison made hot popcorn with butter, put on the movie the children chose. Evan and Sophie snuggled on the big sofa, sharing a fluffy blanket. Claire sat on one side, Harrison on the other, and in the middle, connecting everything, Evan and Sophie. In the middle of the movie, the two children fell asleep, leaning on each other, breathing softly. Claire looked at them and felt her eyes sting with deep gratitude, with immense love. "With everything, is everything okay?" Harrison asked softly. "Yeah, just still can't believe this is real, that this is my life now." "It is, and will continue to be. I promise." Claire looked at him. Really looked. Saw the man who appeared in her life like a stranger in a cheap diner, who became a friend, then a partner, then something much bigger. "Jai, I love you," she said suddenly, surprising herself with the confession. Harrison smiled, that beautiful and genuine smile she learned to love. "I love you too, have loved you for a long time." He leaned in and kissed her. A soft kiss. respectful, full of promise and future. When they pulled apart, the children were still sleeping deeply between them. "I think we became a family," Harrison whispered. "I think so," Claire agreed, smiling with eyes full of happy tears. And there, on that sofa, with two sleeping children and a whole future shining ahead, two broken families became one whole. Claire had started that journey alone, without light, without hope, washing pans in the dark and counting coins. And now she was here, with her own restaurant full of life, with her son happy and safe, with a new and true family, with real and deep love. Life would still be hard sometimes, would still have challenges and obstacles, but now she wasn't alone anymore, and that made all the difference in the world. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next ones. Leave a like because it helps this story get recommended to more people. See you in the next story.